Welcome back to the Authenticity Calling podcast. I am your host, Ralitza, and today we have a very special guest, Dr. Rebecca Reid. Welcome to the podcast, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Dr. Reid is a family doctor, intuitive coach. It's branching out into teaching and really being that bridge between spirituality and healthcare. Is that right?
hmm
Yeah, you
Yeah.
shared a little bit about your inspiring journey. So I'm so excited to have you here to share a little bit more. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, lately we've been connecting sort of the mystics and the medicine. We have an online group chat where a lot of people, a lot of us have really been doing, a spiritual practice in our healing work in the healthcare spaces that we're in and
Mm.
feeling very alone and very isolated. And
Yeah.
so I had this vision come through around bringing people together that are sort of in this space and super siloed and that we shouldn't feel alone. We shouldn't be doing this alone. So one of the women in the group actually said, I know somebody that needs to be in this group. So I was very happy to connect with you through that spiritual connection. And I feel like we are definitely spirit tribe and yeah, long lost sisters in a way. So very happy to be connected.
Yeah, it's such an honor to get kind of looped into this group for sure. It definitely, yeah, can. I know when we talked before of just that, like how lonely it can feel when it feels like you're doing something that's just really not the norm. Um, and just, yeah, it feels really good to come into relationship with women that are just people in general who are walking a bit of a different path. And yeah, I'm just so happy to be here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I know last time we connected, we had a little one-on-one before we actually decided to do the podcast, but you
Mhm.
shared a little bit about your journey in healthcare and how at first it was like you didn't really expect to necessarily go into medicine and then you did and then it was like, it was this big activation moment and then you realized, "Oh my goodness, this is not what I signed up for." Do you want to share a little bit about that journey? Because I'm really curious. I think there's a lot that'll come through for the listeners too, people who are either currently practicing medicine or curious about practicing medicine, or potentially figuring out how to integrate these different spaces, which really I feel like shouldn't be separate. They should really be integrated, right? That's what we do as healers. So yeah, just really curious about, sharing a little bit about your journey because I think that'll speak to a lot of people's hearts.
Yeah. I feel like my like spiritual journey and like journey and personal development really started like a long time ago. Like I'm only in my early 30s, but in my like early teens, I was an elite athlete and a cross country ski racer. And I had been dabbling in like positive psychology and like vision boarding and goal setting. And I would like I would draw my ski race maps like out and I would put like hearts all around them and like come from a place of love. And it really felt like this place of like flow and like power and authenticity of this like expression. And that was like kind of this like awakening for me into that world. And then I like really followed that impulse through my late teens, and I had gone to World Junior Championships as a cross country ski racer. I'd like run at the Olympics. I was a national champion. Like I'd had a
Wow.
lot of success in that realm, and I followed that wave of energy into sport. And like, I mean, so many good things. It's like too much of a good thing is not a good thing, and really had a run in with like what it looked like to push too hard.
Mm.
Um, and like really spiraled into my own like what now I suppose like what the language that people would use would be kind of like an initiation, but at the time it just felt like crap.
Oh, it always does feel
It
that
always
way.
does.
Even if you frame it as an initiation, it's tough.
And we were like, yeah, I guess so. Did I sign up for that? Sure. But yeah, just like really got into like deep into like loneliness, depression, eating disorder, overtraining, like had pushed my body too far, had come up against physical injury, and had really been like questioning at that time. I like actually came from a medical family. Both my parents are physicians. And there's something in me like absolutely knew that avenue, like traditional medicine or like going to see a family physician, which not to disrespect family physicians, I am one and we're very useful at some things, but there's just like something about this struggle that really felt beyond the capability of what I felt was like possible in a family doctor's office. And so I went
Mhm.
looking I saw acupuncturists and osteopaths. And I had through that, I'd come into connection with Pilates and I'd become a Pilates teacher and was working more with like the mind, body, breath practices.
Mm.
And then I just kept following the energy through. And through that, I got connected to a craniosacral therapist. And I just like came against this woman and I was like, oh my God, like this woman has like just like an energy about her, just like a vivacity for life, like an embodiment that I just at that point just did not have. And I was like, oh my God, what is this? And followed that spark to like, I went to actually in my early 20s to go study with this woman down in Boulder, Colorado. Um, and like I got there thinking I was going to study Pilates. And then she was like, I think this craniosacral thing is maybe like what you need. And
Mm.
I got on her treatment table and she did like some craniosacral holds on me. And my nervous system like came to rest for like the first time that I could, like, in as long as I could remember. And I was
Mm.
just like, whoa, what kind of magic is this? And
Yes.
it's like, it's biodynamic craniosacral therapy, which at that time I was just like, I didn't know much about like Reiki or energy medicine or anything like that. But it's really working with like energy and these like forces in the body and these forces in the universe that are these like there's these craniosacral tides of energy that go up and down the body and they're this organizing force and just the I couldn't believe the impact of just having like a deep embodied witness put hands on my body and listen and how deeply, deeply transformative that is. Like just beyond like, oh, there's a person here paying attention to me. It was like, whoa, it's like my anatomy was like unraveling in ways that I couldn't imagine and reorganizing and coming back into life. And I was just like, whoa, this is like a whole different thing. And that was kind of, I feel like there was this like move from like, okay, very physical embodiment to mind body to this kind of energy medicine piece.
Mm.
And then I actually through that, got connected to a woman who was a certified medical intuitive. I found out who like Carolyn Meese was, who people that have been in this world, like she's the first person to coin the term medical intuitive.
Mm.
And in that, I heard this lecture from Carolyn Meese and I was like, what is this? I was like, this just feels like the next layer of depth, stepping into this like spiritual archetypal paradigm where you're then working with like the spiritual paradigm, the thoughts, the psyche, the soul to then heal the body. And it just felt like this
Mm.
like perfect unfolding of this like understanding of how the human body works, how reality works, and it
Mm.
felt really aligned. And then I started that medical intuitive training and I was sitting on the couch, like reading a book called Why People Don't Heal by Carolyn Meese. It's an amazing book. At the time, it was like blew my mind. And just like such an important perspective on health and healing.
Mm.
And I was sitting there on the couch and I just remember this just kind of like download drop in. And it was like being hit by like a spiritual psychic like hammer on the head of just like, you're supposed to be a physician. And I was just like, oh my God, like, are you kidding?
I'm laughing. I'm laughing right now because when you're not like when you don't come from the spiritual space, you're not used to downloads coming through and literally
Yeah.
like a wet towel, like
It's
out of
like, oh,
nowhere.
whack. And just like, oh, and I just remember this like mix of like knowing that that was right and also being like, well, that sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah, bargaining. The bargaining begins.
I was like, I just like, I remember calling my parents and being like, I think I'm supposed to go to med school. And at this point, I'd been like very like outspokenly against like Western medicine. I was like, I'm doing this alternative thing. Here I am. I'm a craniosacral therapist. I'm a medical intuitive. I'm doing this thing. And then it was like, you're supposed to be a Western medical doctor. And I was like, wow. And I mean, it made sense from the perspective, and I think we mentioned this last time, of like, it's really hard to shift the system from the outside of the system. And so knowing I like my journey through like medical school was so fascinating because I had this perspective and yet I feel like I had to like kind of shut it down in order to go through the training and just like it just felt this like it was like, you know what? Like you're here to learn this thing. You're
Right.
here to learn this framework. You're here to learn this. So just like do it. And like we kind of know it's there. Like we kind of know this like, you know, that I kind of know the sources of healing are like way deeper than this, but you got to know this too.
Yes.
And so I really just kind of like dove in and went and like had like a ton of fun. Like it was hard and it was fun and it like I did a family medicine residency in rural medicine and I like got to go to like cool places. Like I just worked up in Inuvik in the territories. I worked with all kinds of like indigenous communities like up in northern
Wow.
BC. I worked in Prince George. I just like got to do and see so many things and interact with so many people and just get this really deep sense of like what does like end stage disease look like.
Mm.
And there was just I think now I've worked as like a family doctor in the office. I've worked in the emergency department. I now work as a hospitalist is my kind of sole gig. It took me a little while to like find my way there, but
Mm.
just the like yeah, the depth of humanity that is present like in the hospital and the depth of suffering is immense.
Mm.
And yeah, just in that have always held this question of like, is there this space for this more spiritual lens and not really knowing how to weave it back in until kind of just recently I've gone through this intuitive coaching program. I'm starting a business as an intuitive coach. That's partly why we're here.
Yes.
And yeah, I just really feel this deep calling to helping people really like get this like bigger perspective on health and disease, that so much of it is rooted in the psyche and so much healing is possible when we open up to this expanded vision, I think, of the human body, that there includes a soul, that there includes like more of like a connected consciousness. And that feels right to me. That's where a lot of my
Mm.
own personal deep healing work has come from. And so
Mm.
to then turn around and think about sharing it back is kind of just where I'm at now, of like working in what feels more like true alignment to me. But I'm still actively working in the hospital and doing this at the same time and just kind of balancing all the different paradigms. And here we are.
Absolutely. Oh, thank you. Thank you for sharing that fascinating journey. I think
Yeah.
most people would be super inspired just to be passionate about one of those things, but
Right.
you've kind of gone and come full
Yeah.
circle,
Oh
and that
yeah.
is
There's
such
more
such a
things in
beautiful.
there too. Like there's more trainings, there's more certifications. There's just kind of the broad strokes overview of it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And
Yeah.
I'm sure that journey has just, and it's going to continue. I mean, when we
Yeah.
start along the journey of learning and developing our skills, and especially being in that space of spirituality, and
Mm.
you might just get right into your practice and then boom, that wet towel might come in
Oh yeah,
and
you
tell
never
you
know.
there's another shift. That's so funny. So I love that you said that you've
Mm-hmm.
always been very spiritual from a young age.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say for people who are kind of like just starting to dip into their spirituality, or maybe are not that connected with their intuition? Is there something that you do that helps you tap into your intuition that listeners can actually use right away, that they can kind
Mm-hmm.
of start to activate that intuition?
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say I was like intentionally intuitive or like that particularly spiritual right off the bat. It's taken a while to like figure out kind of a language for the experiences and the kinds of like energy that I've been playing with. But I think one of the most helpful things that like one of my teachers, Dr. Divi, who's also in this Mystics in the Medicine group, is she's just like, you are intuitive. Like
Mhm.
everybody is intuitive.
Yes.
And one of the most helpful things that she did for me was just being like, is just this clarification of like, oh, those like gut feelings that you have are intuition. Like
Yes.
something when you get chills on your body when somebody's talking, like I got some of those when we first started
Yes.
chatting, of just like this like confirmation of this like somatic confirmation. Like there's just so many things that are intuition that we sometimes they were just like not necessarily calling intuition,
That's right.
that I think when I like started recognizing some of the things that were happening that I wasn't really aware of that I was already doing, that was super super helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I would say is number one. The number two is just like really coming up against the psychic blocks to allowing intuition to flow. And there's a lot of them. Like we live in a society where like hearing voices and talking to dead people is like not super kosher. And it like it
Absolutely.
takes something, there's been such an intentional dismantling of this kind of power for all people. We are women, we have like, but the witch wound is like present for men and women, of just this like fear of being burned at the stake for, tapping into this kind of power and thinking in this framework. And so, yeah, fear of getting past like fear of mental illness, like fear of othering, fear of all these things, like that's really what stands in the way of being able to be like, oh, I can like feel and hear and see things that are coming in a different way than my normal consciousness. And so, yeah, I would say that those are some of the big things for like anybody tapping in. But the biggest thing is just that like there's nobody on this planet that's not intuitive. And I think that's like such an important piece. And when I'm coaching, I like to like walk people through my process for grounding and setting up sacred space. And it's like, you can do this too. Like, this is like, it's helpful when we do it together. It's helpful. Mm-hmm. There's more energy in doing it with a coach present. You can have mm-hmm. different breakthroughs, but mm-hmm. it's like my intuition is not better than your intuition. In fact, I would rather coach you into your own intuition right. because that's going to be truer to you. I don't know better than you, right? I can just hold space for you to know for yourself. And yeah, those are...
That's right. That's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. You shared so much just in that little, I feel like we could have 10 podcasts. Just
yeah, we could.
You just shared. The witch wound is so real with a lot of healers. And I know this is like a taboo terminology about witch wound and burned at the stake and all of that, but that is literally that crossing over of past mm-hmm. lives and past experiences and even mm-hmm. ancestral trauma coming from the space of that activation of being the healer. And even, mm-hmm. When you talk about Western and Eastern medicine, it's almost like it's two very different worlds when actually this is what we're doing now. We're finally bridging that gap. And I think, it's just really important to hold a curious space as we move forward into this sort of world that we're walking right now. Mm-hmm. I am, it's coming through to ask you, like, if we were to like wave a magic wand and co-create the new world or the new way of healing and healthcare and medicine with that spiritual bridge, what do you feel that might look like?
Oh boy.
That's a big one.
It's such a big one, but it's like, I mean, there's so many things like that you could drop into, but I feel like one of the things is having physicians be really clear. Yes. Like one of the things that is so not encouraged right now is physicians being healed, but the healers being healed.
Yes.
Is there's absolutely no way for you to hold space for somebody in a clear way when like you're at your absolute limit, when you are hungry and you are tired and you're like at odds with your spouse at home. And I know this, you mentioned this last time that we were speaking, but like there's these like shifts in perspective of like training physicians to see people as whole and complete and fully healed and holding that space for them that are like it's a whole shift in paradigm from like, you are a victim of this disease. Let me come in and help you. And like, there's even just this like shifting perspective from like healing disease is possible. And like, healing disease is possible. It's multifactorial. Like in my own healing process, I've needed, manual therapy, acupuncture, coaching, somatic therapy, dance. Like there's been like a need to come into community in a different way. And there's like so many elements of that for people. Like there's a role for medications, but when like right now in medicine, we're using medications as like a one size fits all hammer for disease. And it's like, we are missing the boat on all of these other things. We know that like illness is driven by stress. We know that there is like elements of a psychological component to pain, for example, right? Like there's some of these models where it's like, how you catastrophize your pain, it impacts like how much medication you're going to use and things like that. But it's like, what if it's like this, like the shift in paradigm into this more spiritual space is not like there's a physical component to your pain and a psychological component to your pain. It's like you have psychic, psycho-emotional, spiritual pain that's coming through as a manifestation in the physical body. And when we go to that place, then you heal the soul, you heal the psyche, you heal the body. And the mediator in that is really in the mind and training the mind. But yeah, I mean, there's so much. Another huge category of things is just like bringing people back into connection, into community, and like how much healing would happen if we are like really intentional about like we have an epidemic of loneliness, and that's leading to this like mental illness, physical pain, cancer, like GI problems. All of these things are, you can like trace them back to some of these like more psychospiritual roots that
Mm.
you're like, wow, if we kind of dug it up from that standpoint and really integrated people into society, into connection, like all of these things are like so important. But it's really like flipping the paradigm on its head. And I can't say from my standpoint that it's like we don't need to stop working with the physical body. Like that's not true.
Mhm.
Like we do need to treat the physical body, but it's not like there's never a role for surgery, there's never a role for medications. That's like it's this like expanded paradigm. And if we had physicians and nurses like fluent in a more expanded paradigm of like, okay, and we need to work with your mind, and we need to work
Yeah.
with your soul, and we need to work with your family and your friends and your community in order
Yes.
to like bring you back into connection. Like,
Yes.
oh my God, like we would have just a whole different planet, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, that's so, I love, thank
Yeah.
you for sharing that. That was so juicy. That combined like so many of the worlds and spheres that are coming together. And I think, even as a collective, as a healthcare system, even as like spiritually numb and disconnected that space might be, I still feel like collectively we're moving in the right direction because like we're integrating team-based care. Team-based
Yeah.
care is actually being funded on a provincial level in Canada. There's a lot of team-based care that happens as well in the United States. I think
Mm-hmm.
overall in the world, we're moving towards that more community-oriented model when we look at healthcare and how we actually
Mm-hmm.
manage health. But it's definitely still very pharmacologically focused. And I think that's where, having that bridge and being able to say, well, it's not that we're trying to cut out the medicine, but it's like, I always
Mm-mm.
relate it to, putting out the fire. If there's a fire in your house, you're not going to fireproof your house. You're going to call the fire department to put out the fire. But then let's take 20 steps back and consider, like you said, what are all the components of our human condition and our human
Mm-hmm.
capacity to be able to optimize and to be able to really, again, for me, authenticity is one thing that, when I started coaching, and 2020 showed us exactly what loneliness looks like and
Mm-hmm.
what happens when we actually do tune back in. And it's not a bad thing that happened to a lot of people because we finally took step one of transformation, which is slow the fuck down and like stop doing 30 things at the
Like,
same
whoa.
time. Right. Like, no, you can't leave the house. No, you can't go out and work. No, you can't, eat your breakfast while you listen to your thing and try to answer emails at the same time. It's like we had to actually just be still for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people realized, I was actually working for contact tracing for a little while. And I used to tell
Mm-hmm.
people, think of it as a staycation. You get to stay home, you get to say no to everybody, you get to spend time with your family, and you're isolated from the world.
Yeah.
But spinning it from that positive perspective. But a lot of people, it brought them a lot of panic because they didn't realize what they had created for themselves in their home because they
Yeah.
were never home, right? They were never tending to those relationships. And so a lot of
Mm-hmm.
relationships fell apart, especially around, following like blind sheep versus questioning, what's really happening in the world. A lot of people were at odds at home about like, how do we navigate the space?
Mm-hmm.
So it was quite interesting, even in that way, there that, I think we're also moving away from that sort of duality of balance and into the multidimensionality of harmony, right? Really
Mm-hmm.
focusing on harmony and how do we create harmony from all the things? Like how can we say yes and to all of it rather than trying to play this like balancing game where we're constantly trying to get it perfectly in the middle. It's almost this invitation to see how everything can be optimized and how we're playing in all these different realms at the same
Mm-hmm.
time. So it's not a very grounded, tangible concept for people. And I think that's where we just
No.
have to be open to playing in it with it and in it and get curious of how to optimize it.
Yeah.
I think these conversations are pivotal to the success of this sort of multimodal model of wellness is kind of what comes through.
Totally. But like imagine a system where we added two things. One, the mind creates disease, and two, that people have a soul and that we're all connected.
Yeah.
Like even just adding those, like obviously there's a huge ripple effect from those two things.
Yeah.
But it's like if we expanded the current model to really to really include those things in a really like tangible way,
Mhm.
it would change everything.
Absolutely. And as you say, the mind creates disease also does the opposite.
Yeah.
minus of disease and
Yeah.
creates wellness and creates health and creates,
Yeah.
all the beautiful things that we can have in our embodiment, in our human experience, in our existence. So yeah, absolutely. I'm so excited. Yeah, I'm so excited for just for being connected, for this project, for everything you're doing, all of the callings, bridging, kind of coming full circle back to this intuitive space and being able to serve in this way. And your patients and your clients and just everyone you're going to touch is so fortunate. So I'm sure so grateful already. I mean, we're already connected to all the spaces we're meant to serve and overflow in.
Mhm.
But I'm just so excited to be doing this together. And yeah, if there was one thing that you could leave the audience with, or something that you wanted to share, but maybe we haven't dug into, what would that thing be? Or what would that pearl be? Or that invitation maybe?
Mm. I mean, I feel like probably a lot of people listening to your podcast already have this kind of a little bit more spiritual lens. And I'm just like, what's been coming up a lot in a lot of the communities that I'm in is this idea of like, that there's like evil energy on the planet, or there's like evil entities, and that we can be kind of under like energetic attack. And that's really a concept that's really alive in a lot of spiritual circles right now. And it's very fear based. It's
Talk
very,
about
very
that.
fear
Yeah, yeah.
based.
Let's talk about that.
And
Let's
it's
go into
quite
that.
external. Like
Yeah.
it's this externalization still of power to some kind of energetic attack.
Yeah.
And really, like what I'm being taught by my teacher, what I'm feeling into, what feels true to me in counter to that is that we cannot be attacked unless we are already attacking ourselves. And that even like any sort of like entity or like what's perceived as evil that comes in that feels like it's like attacking our body, like I've had clients recently say like, oh, I've been told I have like energetic hooks, and like I've been told the same. But it's like, okay, but why are you able to be hooked? Like, what is it in your thought system? What is it in your energy that needs to be healed to let that thing go? It's not like this, like, oh my God, I can be attacked by somebody else's energy. It's like, no, we're out here, we're connected to all kinds of people's energy, yes.
Mhm.
And it's only the only thing we actually have control over is fear or love in our own system, and healing our own internal thought systems and our own internal wounds. And I think that feels really pertinent right now in
Mhm.
that our minds are so slippery. The ego is so slippery. It can sound as like spiritual as you want, and
Yeah.
it's still a manifestation of like ego and fear. And it's
Yes.
like anything that makes you feel worse about yourself and worse about the world, worse about somebody else is based in fear.
Yes.
And we need to be so, so, so clear about that. And it's like, it's so, so slippery. And it just feels alive for me right now. So that's the thing that I'll bring
I
here.
love that. Wow. Well, you didn't go light on the audience with that one.
It's a tiny little tidbit pearl.
Right, 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 right. Where are you coming from? Love or fear? And I love that because I think even as a teenager, I was very aware that there's two choices. One of them is fear and the other one is faith. And it's like faith is, best friends with love. That unconditional love, it requires faith. Hope, faith, and love. My dad gave me a necklace, even though he's not religious,
Mm,
as a little child, of, that hope, faith, and love. And now I have a tattoo on my back to honor my grandmother, who actually used to be my spiritual bridge growing up.
mm,
But it's really important, I think, the come from. I always talk about the come from. Where are you
mm,
coming from, right? What is
mm,
the energy you're coming from? Because you can take the exact same action, but the come from be very different. And that results in an
mm,
extremely different way that it lands, an
mm,
extremely different invitation to the world to respond to you. And the other thing I'll say is, something that you shared around, oh, these energies are attacking me. No, they're just mirrors of what you have within you. So
yeah,
if it wasn't within you, it wouldn't resonate to you.
exactly.
So rather than pointing the finger out there and being like, this thing out there is attacking me, and as you said, being victims to our circumstance, really
Mhm.
taking that personal responsibility and empowering yourself to say, what in me attracted that thing? I think a lot of times,
Yeah.
and last week I had a conversation with a fellow coach who also he's been through his own like narcissistic codependent dynamics in relationships.
Hmm.
So, a lot of people point the finger and say, well, oh, that person's a narcissist, or I was in a toxic relationship with that guy or that girl or that woman or whatever. But it's like, well,
Hmm.
what part of you allowed and attracted and maintained that dynamic?
Hmm.
It all starts with us.
Yeah, it's like you wouldn't be there if there wasn't also something in you that like really, really deeply needed looking at. And I mean, this is not to say that like at some points, like I think there's a level in when we're trying to navigate this of sometimes needing to like feel like we need to kind of energetically block or, distance yourself from somebody you
Yes,
perceive as like abusive or narcissistic. Like it's not like, oh, stay and like just heal your own
absolutely.
wounds. It's like get
Absolutely not.
out, like
Yeah.
get the fuck out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then like take a look and be like, okay, this is theirs, but what is it in me? And we're just in such an externalized society where we're like, well, that person did this and this person did that. Like
Right.
the mind is just like so active, like projecting our wounds on other people.
Mhm.
And it's like, I catch myself all of the time, like all of the time, trying to be like really getting clear on like, okay, I know this is a projection, but it's like really, really hard to see that this is a projection right now because I
Yes.
just feel like I'm being attacked or like it just feels so personal. And
Yes.
it's like, but it's even like knowing so deeply. I'm like, I know this is the truth and it's still so
Yes, yes.
hard.
I love that you said that because I think we as like coaches and intuitives and people who are being asked to hold the space for other people to come home to themselves, I think it's so important that we start having these really genuine, authentic conversations around like what's the hard piece for you right now because we're all going through it collectively. And when we act like there's like we're not going through anything, I'm sorry, but that to me as a coach and as someone who sees other people doing the work and even as myself personally, it's not that I
Yeah.
intentionally don't want to share, but there's that part of vulnerability that's like, oh, how do you open this up to like the whole wide world that's watching to witness? But then as soon as you do, you realize, oh my gosh, as I share and heal, other people
Mhm.
resonate at that frequency and then we uplift together and that
Yeah.
normalizes that we're all going through this together and
Yeah.
it doesn't escape anybody, right? There is no like Deepak Chopra goes through it,
Oh
the
yeah.
Dalai Lama goes through it, Morgan Freeman goes through it. Like you think whoever you want to name that you think can escape this human condition, and I will tell you they are going through similar same it's
Yeah.
a shift that we're going through in our humanity
Hmm.
and it is really gaining the tools and the awareness and also the witness of ourselves in it, as you just said. I'm going through this, but you have the awareness that you're going through it, so you're not a victim stuck in that situation in the moment where it's never going to end, because it's true when we're in survival mode it feels like it's never going to end, and then
Hmm.
that's how we stay stuck, and then that's how we magnetize even more difficult and challenging times, even more
Hmm.
scarcity, even more limitation, even more debt. And it's that energetic sinkhole, and it starts with the frequencies of shame, blame, guilt, mistrust, and all of those are really just frequencies that resonate in our body, and the more we
Hmm.
resonate at that frequency, the more we're going to attract it. And so yeah, it's just so important to recognize and to witness ourselves in the spiral so that we can actually choose, make that conscious choice to say, okay, wait a second, something's going on here. I don't know what to do. I don't know like but I need help. Number one.
Hmm.
And number two is really being able to trust, as you said, that intuition. And that was a really beautiful activation that you shared earlier. And thank you for allowing that to come through. But whoever was listening, you will now actually be more in tune and in touch with your intuition, because you're going to recognize it more. You're going to
Hmm.
become more aware from that unconscious place to now the conscious place of, oh, that voice in my head, that might be my intuition, or that gut feeling that I get,
Hmm.
that might be the way that my intuition speaks to me. Or maybe it's, something that you see, maybe it's signs, right? I know for me, when I was in the
Hmm.
depths of my like depths of my depression, it was angel numbers that came and were like, oh yeah, you're on the right path. Like everything's going to be okay. And, I used to see double, triple, like quadruple digits all over the place. And
Hmm.
my reminder, my coming out of that shame spiral of like, oh no, I didn't make a decision. This is exactly where I'm meant to be. This
Yeah.
too shall pass. Let me just breathe through this. And then the portal starts opening up to our intuition where, we start to feel and see. And so developing that relationship is so, so important.
Mhm.
Um, if anyone's listening and they want to get in touch with you and they would love to work with you, how can they reach you?
Yeah, I have an Instagram page. There's like nothing on it, but it's probably the best way to like get in touch with me. And it's just Dr. Rebecca Reid, like Dr. Rebecca Reid, REBECCAREID. And yeah, it's you just send me a DM. Like it's gonna
Awesome.
I check it. I just like am not active on there. I haven't had the energy for like posting stuff. And yeah, that's the best way to find me. I don't have a website.
Awesome. And you don't
I'm
need
like,
one,
and
honestly.
I don't need one, and I'm so new. And like, just come find me through Instagram, and just reach out and let's connect. Yeah.
Awesome. Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. It's so, so beautiful to be here with you. So amazing to witness you. So powerful to feel your energy moving through. And I just know that everyone you've touched until now is so blessed and so fortunate to have you. And wow, there's like gates of wait lists of people that are so attuned to what you have to offer. And I think that the medical healthcare system really needs this groundedness and this reminder that we're not just walking prescription writing zombies, because AI can take that part over. But like we
Yeah.
really need to tune in to our spiritual gifts and really tune into our source of becoming the embodied healer. And I think
Oh yeah.
that's what up to health is what came through me. And I haven't shared it until I incorporated, and I finally got my incorporation. It's up to health global. And that's what it's all about, is bringing that transformation into the healthcare space. So I undoubtedly know that we're going to be working together in this space. Everyone in the mystic and the medicine is already doing exactly what, the movement is.
Oh yeah. And just like shout out to all the like doctors and nurses are some of the most intuitive people.
Oh yeah.
Just like a yeah, shout out to them. It's like you're already using it. Like all those cases where you're like, I know this, and but it's like I don't know how I know this. Like
Yeah.
that's intuition, you know, like
Yes.
we're so working on like nudges and impulses and vibes, and like we call it like the clinical gestalt, but you're like,
That's
let's
right.
not call it that anymore. It's like just let it be what it is. It's like yeah, it's coming through as this like, and I think when we start acknowledging that, there's like so much more space for like you're like I said earlier, it's like you're already doing it. It's just like getting language and just leaning into it and trusting it. And yeah, there's so much space for that to come into the medical world for sure.
That's right. That's right. And honestly, there's a lot of fear around AI. And I'm just going to say this, Dad, just because I mentioned
Hmm.
AI earlier. This is the one thing AI will never be able to replace, is the
Yeah.
human connection and the
Hmm.
human intuition. And that
Hmm.
energy that moves between humans, people with souls, is something that nothing and nobody can ever take away. And so even if we have a multi-tiered model and approach, healthcare and healing is never going to move away from humanity. That's what
Hmm.
I truly believe.
Hmm.
So I just want to lay again, coming from that, because I do hear a lot about the fears around AI taking over and da, da, da. IBM Watson has been around for years, like more than 10 years.
Hmm.
And that doesn't hold a candlestick, a match to what we are able to do in the healing space as healthcare providers. And it
Hmm.
happens all the time. People are healed through that care and that love that flows through the hands and hearts of nurses, physicians,
Hmm.
even janitorial staff working in hospitals are
Yeah.
healers. They might not know it, but
Hmm.
every
So
single
true.
smile, every single good intention, it goes such a long way. So yeah, I appreciate so much that you are willing to speak out in a time where I think a lot of people are afraid to actually, admit and witness themselves as healers,
Hmm.
as intuitive beings that have energy moving through them. And we're being asked to claim it. We're being asked to really deeply, intimately commit to being the healer.
Hmm.
And first, and what you said earlier, first and foremost, for heal the physician first, heal the
Heal
healthcare
yourself.
provider
Yeah.
first, right? That's where it starts. You cannot overflow from an empty cup. You cannot keep giving yourself away,
No.
because it's just going to result in more burnout, more stress, more toxicity that actually we pass on to our patients as well.
Yeah.
And that needs to stop.
Yeah.
So I think if everyone takes the personal responsibility to take that burnout and say, absolutely not, no more, I'm going to fill my cup first and then overflow. Even if that was a shift that happened, I think that will change so many people's lives So, I mean, it has to start with us. So thank you.
Totally.
Thank you from the depths of my heart, my soul. I'm so happy, so alive right now with this
Yeah.
conversation. Yeah, really excited to see you just soar in this space and really happy to have you back.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was
Yeah,
fun.
absolutely. We'll do it again soon, I'm sure.
Yes.
All right, darling. Take care.